Hello, everyone. Welcome to Connections with Shawnta Jackson. We are streaming live in the Hotcast room at Hot 7025 FM in Las Vegas. Connections is our opportunity as professionals to make the most out of professional networking, career advancement, and business growth via unscripted, live, unedited chats with like-minded individuals who inform and inspire. We are streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. If you are interested in learning more about me, please do visit my website at shawntajackson.com. Also, if you or your organization or your group are in need of community engaged research or market research support or evaluation or stakeholder and community engagement support, please do consider Cause Engagement Associates. Please do add us to your RSVP listserv. Our website is causeengagement.com. At this time, I will bring on my next guest. His name is Dr. Ivory Toldson. Dr. Toldson is the president and CEO of Quality Education for Minorities Network, QEM. He is also professor at Howard University, professor of counseling psychology, and then also the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Negro Education. At this time, I will bring on Dr. Toldson, and he can tell us about his latest book based off of my research. He's authored or co-authored 5 books, and his latest book is No BS, No Bad Stats. And he'll correct me when he comes on, but I believe the No BS Bad Stats says that Black people need people who care enough about Black people who don't believe every bad thing they hear about Black people. At this time, everyone, please welcome Dr. Toldson.
Hello, it's good to
Hello,
be
Dr.
here.
Toldson, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for
you. Thank
inviting
you for
me to your show. Yeah,
Yes, so
absolutely.
everyone that's watching, we do have a slight delay. Dr. Toldson, he's actually on vacation, and I was telling him that this is a good lifestyle, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me live from Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know that it's been a while since we tried to connect this, so I didn't want to miss out on this opportunity. So thanks for obliging.
Yes, and just for background for folks, with this show, Connections with Shawnta Jackson, I do recruit guests from LinkedIn. However, some of my guests I do actually have working relationships with. So Dr. Toldson is a colleague. We've had the opportunity to work with each other actually for a couple of years now on various projects as it relates to evaluation and research. Our mutual colleagues are Dr. Rodney Hobson. He's over at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and
Hmm.
Dr. Sonia Douglas Horsford, and she's at Teachers College in New York.
Yeah, and you've always done outstanding work, and we continue to call on you. So thanks for always answering the call.
But thank you. And so let's get into it. It's been for a few years now. I've always wanted to have my own show, and you were one of my first guests. And I actually reached out to you a few years ago, and I said, "Hey, I may start a new show at this television station in DC. Are you interested?" And at the time, this was 2019, and you had just released your most recent book, No BS
Hmm.
Bad Stats. Can you tell us a little
Right.
bit about that book and the background?
Okay. So first the title. So no BS, BS for bad stats, and the subtitle is Black people need people who believe in Black people enough not to believe every bad thing they hear about Black people. So I know that's a mouthful, and your adaptation or variation on it fit quite well. But it's something that I said years ago in response to people who seem to be annoyed when I corrected negative stats about Black people, which to me was a little peculiar. So if you're saying there are more Black men in prison than college, and I tell you that that's false, like I have some good news for you, brother. There are actually 700,000 more Black men in college than prison. The naive part of me felt like people would be excited about that. Oh yeah, yeah, Black men, yeah. So you know, we got that BS out there saying these bad things about Black people, but you know, Dr. Tosin has some stats that's showing something else. But what I was finding is oftentimes there were people who were deeply skeptical about any statistic that didn't paint Black people in a negative light. And in my quest to try to correct the stats, and in some cases, not even really correct the stats, but give the proper context to the stats so that we could have the best understanding and the best strategies to be able to solve problems. There were these people out here who didn't believe in didn't believe in Black people, didn't believe enough in us not to believe every bad thing that they hear. And so that's when I first started saying that. Originally, I used to say Black people need Black people who believe in Black people enough not to believe every bad thing they hear about Black people, because mostly it was a response to a lot of Black people that I heard. But um, there was also a lot of people from outside of our community that would gravitate to these negative statistics and use them to either justify their notions of a culture of poverty or some type of corruption in our culture that needed to be fixed, or they might use it to make it appear as though our values were out of whack. And oftentimes they would use it to justify the status quo and make it seem as though the reason why Black people may not be achieving in certain areas is not because of institutional racism, but because of things that we need to fix, things that are a problem within us. So the reason why I wrote the book was because I felt like we needed the best information about Black people in order to resolve longstanding issues that were putting us behind in certain areas. Um, Areas in terms of education, economics, um, uh, different things in terms of our employment. So we have all these issues that we know about, but the problem becomes when we use the wrong information to try to solve these issues. And particularly in education settings, I saw issues in terms of Black children being placed in gifted and talented classes and being overrepresented in special education. I saw problems associated with resource inequities, problems associated with Black children being suspended at rates that we didn't see among other races. So we need the best information to resolve this. And typically that information involves contextualizing the data in a certain way. And oftentimes the conclusion that I've come up with after many of my analyses is that there's nothing inherently wrong with Black people, that it is a system that is set up to place us behind in a lot of different areas. And so the more we can understand that our solution doesn't lie in fixing ourselves, but fixing the broken system, then I think we can come closer to resolving some of these problems that we are experiencing.
Thank you for that. You actually said a few things um, um, that kind of sparked my interest. But as you were speaking, I naturally had a question that I wanted to probe, and then just naturally
Mhm.
you kind of explained yourself. And so, with your book, um, how have you taken the so in the category is it the cat is the category or the genre, is that considered public research? What's the genre
Mhm.
for your book?
Um, yeah, it's in a series of public scholarship. So it is written in a way that the public should be able to assess and understand. It's also used a lot in educational settings and used to use in equity work.
Okay. And then what about you? So so you have your work as a professor and researcher through at Howard. Then
Hmm.
also you are the president and CEO of QEM Quality Education. Um, what is it? Quality Education for Minorities Network,
Yeah.
QEM.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so and you mentioned systems. So I'm asking. So I'm just bear with me. Let me get my question there. So I'm going to ask you about basically what are you doing to change the system, but still on your book for now. How are
Hmm.
you utilizing your book in your practice?
Hmm. Yeah.
or the
So,
content or your research? How are you implementing that?
yeah. Yeah. How am I using it in my practice? And as you mentioned, I have a lot of different jobs. Um, so the content of the book is an outgrowth of work that I've been doing for probably about 15 years. So it started off with me doing research on trying to understand how we can create the best learning circumstances for Black males in school. Around 2008, I started doing research on, or before that, 2007, I started doing research on Black males in the school system and trying to understand better why we were seeing these academic achievement gaps. Why we were seeing instances where Black children, particularly Black males, weren't doing as well as students of other races in school systems. And in doing that, I accessed a lot of data sets, and I wanted to see what was some of the circumstances that may be an impediment to Black males doing their best in school. Um, when I initially started accessing data, and these were large data sets that was collected oftentimes from the federal government, um, what I began doing was comparing Black males to males of other races and trying to understand that gap in between. And quickly, as I went along that line of research, I realized that I wasn't really finding anything. I was reproducing this achievement gap type research, and so it was highlighting problems, and it really sent me on this problem finding mission. But there was nothing that I can glean from that information that was actually going to help to resolve the issue. So, just by happenstance, I was a judge of a writing contest for young African American males at the time. And I was reading their essays, and I was finding that the things that they were saying in their essays, and these were eighth grade through 12th graders, I found that the things that they were saying in their essays about what they needed from their community, from their schools, from their homes in order to achieve was completely absent from the way that a lot of us were doing research. And I started to shift my analytic approach quite a bit because I had all this data. I knew the data was important data, but it was a matter of using the data in a way that really helped to find solutions. And I found the best way to do that was to not look at the white data. You know, if I'm trying to understand how Black children can do better, then why am I really using white males as some kind of comparison? You know, is it even an accurate comparison? If we look at the experiences of white males in their schools and Black males in their schools, um, if white males collectively are doing better, what does that even mean for us? And so what I started to do was, instead of looking at Black males compared to white males or any other race, I started to look at high achieving Black males and compare that to middle achieving and low achieving Black males. And so I set Black males who are doing well as the standard for me to understand what it takes for others to do well. So if I want to help a young Black male who's not doing so well, it doesn't serve anybody's interest to look at how white males are doing. It serves our best interest to look at those Black males who actually are doing well in the environment and try to replicate some of the circumstances around them. And so out of that research came breaking barriers, plotting the path to academic success for school age Black males, where I looked at personal emotional factors, family factors, school related factors, and social environmental factors. Those were the four categories. And I was able to look at, use that analytic approach that I described and find solutions in terms of their peer relationships, the relationships they have with their schools, best practices at home, some of the things related to their health habits, diet. So all of these things. So it just really opened the research at that point. And I would say that became the seeds of the book that I wrote. After I published the Breaking Barriers reports, I went across the nation talking about the findings and trying to help people to understand what was the best circumstances, whether it's the family circumstance, social, environmental social circumstance, or different things at the school. What are those things that can create the optimal learning environment? And what I quickly found as I was doing this was that there were people who are deeply cynical about any solutions. And I was able to kind of trace that cynicism to all of this negative information that they had prior to me giving information that I thought was hopeful and information that I thought that they could really do something with. And so I was hearing things like, that, most of these kids come on this low reading level, or most of these kids are from single parent households, or half of them are going to drop out. There are more black men in prison than college, so I kept hearing all of these different things. But when I would hear them and start to probe a little bit, where did you hear it from? What sources are you documenting? People was taking this as just a gospel truth, just common knowledge. And so I started to write about the things that I was hearing, and I started to publish these blogs on the root called Show Me the Numbers. So if somebody said that black males were at a disadvantage because they all came from single parent households, I started to do the research to help people to understand whether it's true, what's true about it, what's not true about it, and try to present the information that they've been hearing in a way that could help them to tease out the BS from things that we really could use, help them to contextualize it, and help to create meaningful solutions out of that. So that's what the book is about. So I would say that the book is a culmination of the things that I've done, like what I've just described to you, and describing the findings that I had, and also giving people, hope about how to work with Black people, how to not be defeated by all of the BS, bad stats that you hear, and use good data to find good solutions to some problems that are very serious.
And thank you for that. And I have a few questions and comments. However, first I want to make sure that I acknowledge those in the chat box. So for those of you who are watching live, please do enter any questions or comments. We do have Jimmy Denson watching from Las Vegas checking in to say hello. And so thank you. We have a professional, more so peer-to-peer community from LinkedIn, but then also on YouTube and Facebook, we have a lay audience as well. And so I really do appreciate the way you disseminate your information and just your disseminate in general. You have been featured in the Washington Post. I believe I think I saw in Newsweek, New York Times, CNN, The Griot, Essence magazine. So various media outlets. And so I'm observing and I'm looking at you as an advocate, as a leader, and then also as a researcher, how good you are doing with your communications, with your dissemination and your media strategy, your public relations.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. And then also your analytic approach. Um, and you mentioned show me the numbers, and
Mhm.
so beyond the analysis, so before that there's the design, there's the research design,
Mhm.
right? And then there's the data collection. And so I immediately, when you were speaking, I was thinking about conscious and unconscious bias, right?
Mhm.
And who's designing this research. And
Right.
at the beginning you said, at first you used to say black people need black people.
Mhm.
You changed it to black people need people.
Mhm.
And sometimes, and as researchers or practitioners, whether it's public health, whether it's education, whether it's STEM or any industry, sometimes in this, especially if we've attended predominantly white institutions, the rhetoric or our just our thought of training, we don't think to often challenge ourselves to think like, wait a minute, what was the intention? So who designed this research? What was the intention? The data that was collected, again, the intention, and so the usage, and what narrative are they trying to create, or was there, what was the hypothesis at the beginning? So I think that conversations are important, and I like the fact that in my mind, what you did was a part of a needs assessment. So in my world, it would be a community needs assessment. You mentioned that you were a judge of the essay contest, and then, but the young men, the young boys, they were telling everyone what they need and what they say they need in order to be successful in life, and that was missing. So just for you to be able to recognize that and say, you know what, this is an unmet need, and I want to meet this, and I want to serve them and meet these unmet needs. I appreciate you for that. But I think your thought processes and your strategy, I think it has a lot to do with experience, but then also, do you think it has to do with your connection to historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, for you to have that active?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I do think being affiliated with an HBCU has helped me to think differently and to have an appreciation for my people that is necessary to do this kind of work. Now, that being said, there's issues related to how we use data, particularly data on Black people, that is very large and cuts across all different types of institutional settings. There was a cluster of experiences that that I was fortunate to have, being in the HBCU being one of them, but also judging the writing contest, as you mentioned, and also being affiliated with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation at the time, that was pushing me to write in a certain way so that members of Congress and their staff would be able to understand the work that I was doing. And so I understood that I began to have more of an appreciation for people who needed to understand the research without the use of jargon, and for me to be able to translate research in a way that's going to be meaningful. And also for me to appreciate simple forms of research, like using percentages, when that would be the most helpful to a particular cause. Being in your PhD program, you're taught that the more sophisticated the analysis. So if you use something like latent growth curve analysis, or MANOVA, MANCOVA, different types of linear regressions, and all of these types of things. All those things are important to know. Structural equation modeling; those are important to learn. But when you start to discount other types of information, so if you can see that at a certain school, it's 20% Black, but the suspensions are 70% Black. When you become so educated that that's too simple for you to want to do something about, then you're of no use for the common person. And we don't want to be that way.
Yes, the miseducation of the Negro.
Right. So we can stick to our fancy journals, and we can stick to our research conferences, and we can talk in this very sophisticated way. But when your level of understanding is so far out there that you start to not understand the things that are important to people, for debunking the statistic that there are more black men in prison than college was meaningful to a lot of people. But in terms of the statistics behind it, it just, I use something called subtraction, to to understand that difference. So, academics have to be in a position to use their scholarship not just to craft statistic, fancy methodological constructs, but also to help people to delve deeper into the meaning of some of the injustices that we see every day.
Thank you, Dr. Toldson. And we have LaShannon Spencer checking in, and she says it's great to see an Arkansas native Little Rock impacting lives and challenges the system as it relates to his research, action, and passion. Are you from Arkansas?
I'm not from Arkansas. I'm from close to Arkansas, Louisiana. Some people see Arkansas and Louisiana as connected, and Louisiana being the bottom of the boot, and Arkansas being the top of the boot. Now, I have presented in Little Rock quite a bit. I don't have any family in Little Rock, but my both of my parents come from the extreme north Louisiana in the Mississippi Delta area, which is very close to Arkansas. So it's just not too far off.
Okay. And LaShannon and I, we were in the graduate program together. I was in the master level of public health program, and she was pursuing her PhD at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And
Okay.
she is a native of Little Rock,
Uh-huh.
and she heads the primary care association. I'm sorry, primary care. Yeah, that's right. Primary care association for the federally qualified health system, federally qualified clinics in Arkansas. And so the
Mhm.
agency that she leads, they provide a lot of technical assistance, guidance, capacity building support to those federally qualified health centers in Arkansas.
Excellent.
And so she's a colleague as well. And
Okay.
let's see. We talked about the research. You were formally previously appointed by President Barack Obama on the White House initiative for HBCUs. Can you tell us
Mhm.
about that and how that work ties into what you were doing with QEM?
Yeah. So I was appointed in 2013 as a deputy director of the White House Initiative on HBCUs, and I subsequently became the executive director after the executive director at the time, who became a very close friend and mentor. He unfortunately passed away, and so that's how I became the executive director. And
My condolences.
in that capacity, I worked with across federal agencies um, to work with their teams to devise strategies to expand the support that they were giving to HBCUs, and that required a lot of data gathering. So looking at how much they were given to HBCUs, how much they were given to all institutions of higher education, and making sure that HBCUs were fairly represented in their portfolio, and also working directly with HBCUs to help them to understand the best strategies and approaches and giving them the best information for them to be able to get the types of resource from the federal government that they deserve. From that, I went on to lead QEM, which is a DC based nonprofit that was started in 1990 by Dr. Shirley McVeigh. She was a Spelman undergrad and the first Black woman to get a PhD from University of Georgia. So I succeeded her. And in that organization, we work with minority serving institutions, HBCUs, and other minority serving institutions to help them to um, build more competitive proposals to get funding from the federal government. So it was I was very gratified to be able to continue to work that I was doing for the Obama administration in the nonprofit sector to support our nation's HBCUs.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And we have, let's see who's checking in. We have my mother checking in from Las Vegas. And she says, great topic and congratulations on all of your accomplishments and have a blessed day.
Okay. Thank you.
And so the purpose of this show, like I said, I like to bring on guests who inform and inspire. And you've definitely done that. And so thank you so much. But in addition to informing and inspiring, this is also about networking as well. And are there any connections that you are looking to make for yourself or any organization or group that you're affiliated with? Or opportunities that you're seeking?
Yeah, all HBCUs are invited to, and other minority serving institutions are invited to look at our website, QEM.org, for the different resources that we have. And always want to connect to people, especially those who are involved with HBCU research, about different opportunities that we have and opportunities to collaborate. STEM advocates and those who are in the K through 12 space who are interested in educational equity. I think that the resources in my book would help to get us to thinking differently about some of the data that we're using. Data is becoming more and more ubiquitous, and I'm interested in people understanding how to gather the types of data that's going to lead to meaningful solutions. So if anybody's interested in that space, definitely connect with me via my website or on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Yes, please do connect with Dr. Ivory A. Toldson. I believe your LinkedIn, it says Ivory A. Toldson, PhD. I think that's his LinkedIn screen name. And then also I am on LinkedIn as well, Shawnta Jackson, NPH. And you can also learn more about me at shawntajackson.com and visit my business website, causeengagement.com, to learn how we could possibly work together if you are interested in support with your market or community engaged research, evaluation, as well as any community or stakeholder engagement. And as far as, let's see, I want to check in the last comments. We have E. Carice. She is my cousin. She is the owner of this Hotcast room, and also Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas radio station. And I really do appreciate her support. And I just love being around other entrepreneurs. And I do also consider you, Dr. Toldson, an entrepreneur as well. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We stream live the same time on each and every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. As always, we welcome any questions and comments. Even after this live stream, I will be monitoring the chat. And please do, again, connect with Dr. Toldson on LinkedIn and myself. In the meantime, have a great day. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.